Hi, welcome to Spiritual Connection. I'm Katie Augustyn and I'm your host. The intention of our show is to connect with each other as well as to connect more fully with our spiritual nature. So today I have a special guest, and her name is Cathy French. So Cathy is really the person who got me started on my spiritual journey about 10 years ago. At the time, she was teaching the One Light Healing Touch, which is an energy healing modality. So she's been a spiritual leader, a healer, and a coach since 1992. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, it is.
So welcome to the show, Cathy.
Oh, thanks, Katie. It's great to be here.
Yeah. She's really been my mentor along the way. And the intention is for Cathy to be a regular on the show. So you will see a lot more of her as the weeks go on. So basically we just wanted to start talking about our spiritual journeys and what spirituality means to us, and thereby giving you some insight and how you can be on your spiritual journey.
Yeah, thanks for that. That was really beautiful. I was remembering, as you were talking about when we first began our relationship, when I was teaching One Light Healing Touch, and the thing that I remember about you is that there was this healing modality that I was offering, and you just jumped right in and said yes. And off you went. And I was thinking how much that really plays a big part in us getting in greater contact with our own inner nature, is when we say yes to something that entices us, that speaks to something deep within us. Sometimes it's what we can't even name. That it's that connection that I think spiritual connection is really all about.
Wow, that's interesting, because I do remember that, and I remember that the importance of just being open, because at that time, I really didn't know that there was anything missing in my life. I didn't have that sense at all. Everything was great as far as I could tell. But then once I started learning about One Light Healing Touch and just about spirituality in general, I realized that that's what was missing in my life.
Wow. Yeah. One of the things that they say is the spiritual path is for people for whom happiness is not enough. Like there's just something, your life can look great, your life can be great, and some people feel like there's just something that's missing. Sometimes it's a deeper intimacy in our life. That's spiritual also. My understanding of what spirituality is that that tender beauty within each person, that each person holds that spark of life, and that when we're in touch with that, our lives take on a quality that is what I think we're all really looking for, that sense of being connected to life and alive in life and living a life that makes a difference. So often we're wanting to make a contribution, and we may do things that make a big difference one way or another, but if we're not personally connected to it, if it's not speaking to our heart and we're not acting from that place, it can ring kind of hollow, even though it may be a wonderful thing and people are grateful for it.
So how does one go about connecting to that part of us, that deep part of us, the God within us, if you will?
Oh, wow. There's as many different ways to do that as there are people. I think some people who feel that, for some people, it's the first time they lay eyes on, their one beloved, the one that they love, or they hold their child for the first time, or sometimes it's looking at a piece of artwork. There's something that happens when where we lose sense of time, where we lose a sense of sometimes our sensory awareness shifts, colors will be brighter, or sounds will be more beautiful, or there's everybody alive has had some experience like that. Maybe it's been when we've been down and someone we love just reaches out to us. You know, there's that sense that there's something more at play than just everyday reality.
Also, connecting with nature came up for me while you were describing that. And that was something that was sort of new for me once I got on the spiritual path. You know, I just took nature for granted. I didn't really pay that much attention to it. I didn't feel anything, really. It was just there. And then, you know, in the last 10 years or so, it's been just a completely different experience. It's like I'm literally connected to everything in nature, you know.
Wow.
The plants, the animals, everything. It's just like we're all together, we're all one.
Wow.
It's a different experience.
Yeah. I'm so glad you mentioned nature, because sometimes when people are distressed or going through a hard time, one of the things that I recommend is that they come out into nature, because nature will have a way of almost reorganizing us. Like we get to feel like we're part of something bigger and connecting to something that's kind of ever present. You know, it's so... Sometimes it can be so subtle. I mean, there are those incredible sunrises or sunsets, or, you know, there are spectacular things in nature. Sometimes just hearing the birds sing can take us to a place that's so beautiful. So beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's not something that I take for granted anymore.
That's wonderful.
You know, and it's more appreciative. And, you know, it's funny because last night, my husband is very big on nature, and he had been away for a few days, and he came home and he's like, I just have to get outside. I just want to be outside.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, weren't you just outside for 3 days? He said, well, yes, but that's why I want to continue that feeling of whatever it was giving him. He just wanted to continue that. And sometimes, you know, in our busy lives, we're just not able to do that so much, you know.
Yeah.
So I think it's important. That's good. That's good to remember.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that, he's so fortunate that he's been able to find that kind of contentment or that kind of connection in nature.
Yeah, and also realize that it's important. You know, one thing that I have realized being on the spiritual path is how important self-awareness is. And that's really, to me, the beginning of having that spiritual connection, or just that spiritual growth or personal growth, whatever you want to call it. It's more, you know, we have to start within. We have to know ourselves.
Yeah.
And begin to appreciate ourselves, and understand that we are just great the way we are, you know, and not in every sense. Of course, we can all, you know, there's always improvements. I didn't mean it that way, but just who we are just perfect.
Yeah. You know, that's such a beautiful, I love the way you put that together. That's so much my experience. Yeah. That so often we think that we have to get somewhere, you know, we have to, like we're on a constant self-improvement program, and certainly, as you're pointing to, you know, there are things that we can do that will make us, allow us to be greater expressions of who we truly are. But this deep awareness that there's an okayness about whoever we are, however we look, whoever we are as a human being. Wherever we are. Yes, you're absolutely right. And it took me a very long time to get this. Years and years. I think as a culture, we're kind of, we're told that, you know, we need to keep going at this and do better at that. And this connection to ourselves to who we really are, to our own inner light gets lost. And so then to be a good person or to become spiritual feels like oh, it's something, I have to act a certain way, or, you know, say I can't swear, or I can't drink, or I can't, I mean, and it's none of that. It's none of that. It's fully being who we are. There's such freedom in it. Such freedom. And I think that that's one of the hallmarks, I think, of spirituality, is this yearning for the freedom to just be who we are. Yeah. And to be accepted, and for us to be able to accept the other just as they are.
Right, right. To accept ourselves first, and then...
Yeah.
It's not only accept. For me, it's been a little bit further than that. It's almost as though... like embrace what the other person, who the other person is.
Wow. Oh, say more about that.
So it's about bringing out the best in everybody, because you know, my firm belief is that there is good in everybody, if not greatness, certainly. And that, you know, one of the things that I've studied is coaching for transformation. And in transformation coaching, it's really about that. It's about meeting the person where they are, and embracing the fact that they are perfect the way they are, and then bringing out whatever it is that needs to come out, so they realize it too.
Wow.
And then allowing them to reach their potential is really what it's about.
Yeah. You know, you talk about that as coaching, and that feels like very much this, you know, what a spiritual path looks like. You know, this reaching into ourselves, being able to see ourselves as who we are, and being witnessed by someone else in our greatness. Yeah. There's something, it's such a great gift.
Right, because everyone really needs to feel acknowledged and seen and heard. And as a coach, that's what we do.
Wow.
I mean, that's where we start.
Wow.
And, you know, what's amazing to me and what I learned is that a lot of people don't have that. They don't have that opportunity in their life to be heard and seen, acknowledged. You know, it's just not a common occurrence in most people's lives, which it's so valuable. And it's really not that difficult to do, you know, once you are aware of it. And, you know, to me, and what I talk to my clients about a lot is, you know, the first step is awareness. So, yes, self-awareness is a general term, but it could be awareness of your values, your core values. It could be awareness of your, you know, and that translates to what you need to be the best expression of yourself. And then awareness of perhaps where you need to grow. You know, so once you're aware of it, then the light kind of gets, you know, it shines on it a little bit. And then that allows you then to do whatever's necessary. You know, whether it's to make those shifts or changes, or, you know, sometimes it's just a matter of changing the way you look at something.
Really?
Yeah, so remember in our spiritual leadership trainings where we learned that if you change the way you're looking at something, that something changes?
Yeah.
For me, that was a very powerful learning experience, because it's true, you know, it's amazing. And I put that in practice almost every day. There's something that comes up that I just changed the way I'm looking at it just enough to where I go, that's not what it is, it's something else. So it's just, for me, it's been dramatic.
Wow. There are actually scientific experiments that prove that. You know,
right.
Yeah, you can YouTube it, I'm sure. Yeah. That, and how have you experienced it in your life? Do you have any?
Well, a lot of them are kind of personal, so I don't know
if
talk about that so much, but if I think of anything else.
Because as you're, well, I have a friend who's going through a divorce, and when we first started talking, he was, you know, a divorce doesn't always bring out the best in a person, And you know, it's a very tender time, and a lot of emotion was coming up. And he slowly began to see this woman that he at the time was married to. He began to see her in a different way. You know, not as the bad guy, not as the one who, you know, did this or that or whatever, but he began to appreciate her just as a human being. And what that did, he was able to let go of emotion just because he was in a place of, for all of her flaws and challenges and whatever else, to see the things in her that he loved. And when he was able to hold her in that space, she was able to come forward in ways that that allowed the whole divorce process to begin to change, instead of a contentious thing into something they were creating for themselves and for their children. You know, like, how can we make the best out of this?
That's great. That's amazing. Yeah, because I find that when you're able to shift the way you're looking at something and that something changes, it's not only from your perspective, but as you were saying, that something alters too, so it can respond differently to what you're putting out there. Because it's really our energy that we're putting out there. You know, in that sense, people aren't necessarily reading our minds per se, but they're definitely picking up on our energy, what we're putting out there.
Yeah, people know when they're being held in warm regard. And that can make a shift. It's such a different, I mean, all of us have come into a room where there's been, I know people have been in an argument and you think, oh boy, I think I want to get out of this room in a big hurry. And you don't see anything, you don't feel anything, but you do sense that energy, right? Yeah. We've all been in a place where we want to be closer to someone or we want to get the heck away from them. And so being aware of what we're putting out, you know, the space that we hold, you know, when we're caring for ourselves and choosing to be a contribution to life, it can touch people in, you know, ways we can't even imagine.
Yeah. Yes, I agree, and I've had that experience where, you know, it's the cliche. Well, if you are the change you want to see in the world, then that's great. Or
right.
That's not the same, but something like that. But if you can change other events or people by just being who you are. And I find that if I just have that attitude, you know, and just walk around with the attitude that I am about love, you know, and I'm going to personify love, I'm going to embody love, and people look at you like, they just smile at you. I mean, it's just wild.
It's so true. It's been my experience that love will go where nothing else will. And it's that, and you made me think of something else about well, I lost it, but this idea of what it is, of being the quality that we value, like love, truth, honesty, you know, to be able to, courage, you know, any of the qualities that speak to our own inner being, you know, the qualities we admire in others, to be able to step into that ourselves and to be that in a place that's generous, allows for a whole lot of other things to shift and change. You know, there are great moments in history when people have come forward. I'm thinking of Robert Kennedy's speech on the night that Martin Luther King was assassinated. You know, his tenderness, his courage, his open-hearted grief as well, had an impact on thousands and thousands and thousands of people. When we have the courage to be vulnerable, you know, and I'm not talking about anything sappy, I'm talking about coming from a place of internal integrity and being because that really takes the greatest amount of courage. And we can see it in our political arena practically any day of the week. You know, who in the leadership position has the courage to be vulnerable and say, this is what's true for me, and this is where I think we need to be going, or I've made these mistakes and I'm correcting them going forward in this way. You know, it leaves people speechless. There's been all kinds of research on that as well.
Yeah, yeah. Because if you exhibit vulnerability, then the other person will as well. So that's a healing situation in and of itself. So just imagine if you multiply that over, you know, a lot of people, thousands of people, it really could change the world. I mean, that's a serious thing about that. Yeah, and being the qualities, going back to what you're talking about in that regard, it has to be authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Which,
Yeah.
I know you agree with that. And so the first step again is to be aware. So find out, you know, what. It's important for us to find out what our true core values are. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's not that obvious, you know, until you really do the work to find out what can you not live without, what can you not do without.
Wow.
And that's the way it kind of occurs for me. And then just exhibit those qualities. You know, nobody's perfect. I mean,
sure.
You know, we're not going to all have that all of the time, but at least you're aware of it and you're making the effort.
Yeah. You know, it's so interesting, you know, this idea of being self-aware. You know, there isn't a whole lot of emphasis on that in our culture, on really understanding who we are and being accepting of that. And I don't know how one would live a meaningful life without it.
Yeah, well, because it colors everything.
It does.
And it's like once you have it, you know, the first hurdle is to accept it, because I accept what you find about yourself, because I think that, you know, at least speaking from my experience, the tendency is to think, no, that's not, you know, whether it's good or bad.
Right.
You know, so if you find out that, you know, you have a problem with something or an issue with something, you know, you want to deny it. At least that's my tendency. So, no, that's not true. Or if you find out a really good quality about yourself, then you want to minimize it.
Some people do, yeah.
So I think it's really, it takes a while. It's a process. I mean, I used to hate that when people said it's all about the process. I'm like, no, just do it, just do it. Get it done. That was me. But, you know, now I understand. It takes a while to unfold and to really incorporate it as to who you are and what's important to you, and then help other people kind of, you know, figure that out too.
Right. You know, one of the things that I think's been helpful to me is to recognize that there's an aspect of me that is the knower. You know, like, who has the awareness that I have these shortcomings or these assets? You know, and that whatever is going on out here with the personality and the, you know, and the way that I'm interfacing with the world, that's something, those are qualities I have, that's something that's separate from who I truly am. And that the more that I identify and have the experience of that, of what's behind the personality, you know, of that part, that seed of light that's within me and is within everyone and everything, and that all of those aspects are equal to each other, you know, that this is, the more that I can dignify that light within me, the easier it makes it for me to deal with these other personality issues that can be so irritating, or those aspects that I work with. Knowing that this light within truly is me and is eternal. That, and to have an experience of that, that's what's made all the difference for me, I think, in my work.
Great. That's a really good way of describing it. I think that's a really perfect way to start to end our show.
Thank you, Katie.
What else do you do?
I do coaching, I do spiritual mentorship, retreats, and private tutoring. So yeah, I'm pretty busy.
All right. So
Yeah.
we will put your contact info on the screen so
Wonderful.
our readers will contact you
Thank you.
and ask you any questions. I'll assume that
Sure.
just
Yeah.
see how it goes, and really appreciate you being here.
Oh, it's
And
been
as I said earlier,